Hi everyone, I'm Mike and this is the Sunday Art Show. Now if you've been watching some of the other videos on the channel recently, you'll know that I'm currently doing the Animal Alphabet Challenge, and that's where I do some short, quick drawings using a Sharpie pen, and they're just black and white drawings basically. And in doing those recently, it reminded me of a technique that I was experimenting with a few months ago, and that's where I use a watercolour marker pen and then drag a clean wet brush through those lines to add a little bit more definition and a little bit of tone. So I thought I'd do one of those for this week's Sunday Art Show. And what I've started on screen already, using, as I said, a black watercolour marker pen, I'm using the brush tip. I'm just putting in some outline work for a chameleon. So chameleon drawing this week. Again, it's another animal I don't normally draw. So that makes it really good fun from my point of view. And the chameleon, it has a lot of sort of complex texture and patterning on its body and head. So I'm trying to ignore that completely at the moment and just keep all the shapes nice and simple. So you can see he's kind of facing to the right, crouching down, and actually just pausing on top of a branch here, so I'm just kind of outlining the branch a little bit there. So I was going to say it always helps to place the animal in some kind of environment. But having said that, I guess that's not always the case. If you're going for more of a design or a logo look or just a dramatic shaped image, it is sometimes good to just isolate the head of an animal against a bright background. But in this case, at least, I'm popping down the presence of the branch. So now I'm coming in with a brush which is around about a 1/2 inch wide. It's just a normal synthetic brush, flat brush, and I've dipped that in some clean water. And once I get my hand out of the way, you'll be able to see that as I've dragged that wet brush through the water, through the watercolour paint, you can see I'm dragging the black into a wash of grey, but my brush marks are visible and they allow me to put down, lots of different textures quite quickly, depending on how wet the brush is. If it's very wet, then you get lots of little bubbles and texture marks. If it's a little bit drier, then you tend to get a series of very fine parallel lines, and they can act as contours to describe the form of the animal. So still keeping things kind of loose and just loosely indicating where the shadows are to begin to model some three-dimensional effect into this drawing. And we've also got some cast shadow where the animal is crouched down over the branch, so that helps to create the illusion that the animal is actually on top of something by putting that cast shadow in. You can see I've done that just below the rear foot there. And then of course the branch itself is got some shadow too. The light's falling from above, so the lower half of the branch is generally speaking going to be in shadow. So you can see just those, few quick motions through the line work that we've done have started to bring the drawing to life. It's gone from being just a simple outline illustration to something a bit more. There are a lot more graduations of tone with relatively little work. That's taken me about 3.5 minutes or so, I guess. So that's one of the great things with watercolour. You can be so expressive very, very quickly. Now what I've done is switch to the other end of the pen. So these pens come with a brush tip and also a fine liner tip. And I'm using the fine liner tip now to add in a little bit of detail selectively. So I don't know the technical name for the things I'm putting in there below the jaw, but they look like little frills or little spines. And I also need to indicate the eye, because whether it's a human or an animal, getting the eye right really does bring a drawing to life. But even that, I'm treating that very simply. So just a dark area in the centre and then a broken outline around the edge of the eye as well. And again, keeping the line broken to indicate where the mouth is. And using broken line can often be much more characterful and expressive than simply using a solid line. So even on the relatively bold outline work that I did, you can see I left little gaps in the outline. And that's quite deliberate. It makes the drawing a little bit more lively. And I've started to put in some texture onto the top of the head of the animal, and I'm also adding some of those frills or spines along the back. But I'm deliberately keeping those different in shape. Each one's different in shape and different in angle. Some are described far more loosely than others. And again, it just adds a little bit of variety that you see with, you know, any organic thing, whether it's a plant or, you know, a plant or an animal. If it's not man-made, then there's going to be a little bit of variation, a little bit of randomness in the way it's kind of held together. Now, as I mentioned, the body of the chameleon, it's got a lot of complex patterning, but I'm not trying to capture all of that at all. Just picking out selected bits and trying to put in enough that's going to convey, you know, the reality of this animal here. And you can see that by continuing that pattern over from the lightest area of the midriff down to the shadowy part of the belly, that helps kind of blend the shaded and the light area together. I just did a little bit more detail on the front foot, and I'm adding a little bit more to the rear foot as well. But again, not getting lured into the trap of, you know, too much detail. This is just meant to be an expressive, quick drawing, capturing the essence of the chameleon. And I feel I've captured his face quite, the expression on his face quite well there. So I think, you know, this one's probably almost done. Just, you know, sometimes you need to know when to stop. But let's just come in with the brush again and add a little bit more. Just soften that eye. And, you know, the chameleon has kind of a bulbous eye, so the underside of that little hemisphere that forms his eye, that's in shadow. And again, around the mouth as well, a little bit more shadow just to make it a little bit more three-dimensional there. And even that little kind of bumpy ridge on the belly, we can deepen the shadow underneath that and then shade in parts of the patterning as well. But these are little subtle touches, you know, at the end of the drawing, really. Just adding little finishing touches to just heighten the sense of contrast here and there. And I think that one's pretty much close to being done. So what do we think? Anything more I need to do to that? Quick signature, pop that on the branch sideways on. And I always put the year. So I did this a few weeks ago, but it was 2019. So there's the finished sketch. I'll pop it up on the website as usual. So if you want to zoom in at any of the subtle textures and the broken line work, then you can click on the link in the description below the video. And if you click on the image on the website, then you can zoom in and get a really close look at how I've created this little chameleon drawing. Anyway, hope you really enjoyed this video. As usual, please remember to like, comment and subscribe. And I hope to see you next Sunday for the next episode of The Sunday Art Show. Thanks very much for watching.